Day 25. Welcome back to returning viewers and a warm welcome to any new viewers or subscribers. My name is Tanya. I'm 52 years old and I live on the east coast of Scotland, and this is my 30-day challenge where I'm learning fast by getting comfortable being in front of the camera, starting to relay some stories from my past experience and starting to reflect back on experiences that I've had, the meaning that I associated with them, the coping strategies that I developed, and what culminated in the past 18 months, me doing additional training in hypnotherapy and in coaching through the Rapid Transformational Therapy School that is founded by Marissa Peer here in the UK. And what I ended up finding is that a lot of the coping strategies that I introduced were getting me to survival mode, and they were giving me moments of pleasure and contentment and happiness. But when things were starting to compound in my life and there was a lot of stuff going on, I was actually returning back to unhealthy patterns and behaviours, and I was becoming very self-critical of myself and judging myself. Why was I not doing better? But I was unaware of what was going on at a deep-rooted level. And only in the past 18 months, I've started to uncover all those layers. Just like I'm peeling an onion, you're starting to get to the root of everything. And once you get to the root on a subconscious level, you're able to change that primal wiring that we have as human beings. And you can replace it with something that's more beneficial. So this video diary vlog is me sort of like exploring the past, understanding things with the kind of new tools and techniques and the training that I have, and learning through that experience, getting comfortable, as I mentioned, in front of the camera, and by creating this channel, hopefully creating community and tribe where people can actually relate to either certain elements of my life story, because I appreciate we've all got our own trajectories and our own kind of experiences that we've gone through. So there might be some similarities, but in some instances it'll be a totally different journey, but the feelings and the thoughts and the patterns and the behaviours might be similar. So this is where we can actually start supporting each other. Now, going forward, once the 30 days are up, I'm going to change the format. I've mentioned it in a few vlogs previously, where I'm going to introduce 3 videos per week. On a Monday, looking at the self-reflection of what I've experienced the previous week and what I want to improve for the week coming ahead. So it's that kind of self-development diary vlog that I'll be doing on the Monday. And then on the Wednesday, it's going to be tools and techniques, hints and tips that I can actually share. I'll pick a topic at a time. It might be something that you comment in the comments below this as an area that you've got an interest, or I'll look back on the 30-day challenge to see which videos got more views from YouTube users, and I might use those as the kind of starting point until the community tribe starts contributing and providing some feedback. And then on a Friday, I'll continue my life story, because the 30 days isn't going to be enough to cover 5 decades of my life, because there's been a lot of mini adventures and fun journeys and experiences that I've had, that even through this 30-day challenge that I've been covering certain elements of, I've not gone into probably, maybe not necessarily so much detail, but I've not covered all the aspects. I've mentioned some of the kind of travels, but I've not sort of like explained, well, not necessarily explained, I've not detailed the kind of highlights and the lowlights of the kind of travel experience, and that will become something fun for me to sort of reflect back in years to come. So for those of you that have been sort of following the journey so far, yesterday I was sort of recalling, I got up to 2019 where I did a number of Tony Robbins live events in London and then over in Florida in Palm Springs. So we came into 2020, and this is where I was equipped with a lot more kind of awareness, insight and breakthroughs that I actually had. And I thought 2020, I'm going to smash it. It's going to be absolutely awesome. But we all know what happened in 2020 with the coronavirus COVID pandemic. So life changed in a big way, in the fact that where I was commuting into Edinburgh on a daily Monday to Friday to go to work, all of a sudden I was actually working from home. My husband was actually semi-retired at that point, so he wasn't working, so he was in the home as well. So it created a little bit of an unusual kind of pattern where we were 24/7 in the flat. For me, it was absolutely a godsend, because I actually had someone that I can actually share the kind of experiences that I was having in work in a real-time kind of environment. If I was coming off a Teams call and there was a lot of kind of tension within the call, I was able to sort of like vent off and release and let it all go. Unfortunately for him, he was actually starting to hear a lot more kind of work chat that he didn't fully understand, and quite frankly, he wasn't interested, but he cared about me, so he would sort of give me the space for me to sort of vent off. But it started putting a bit of strain on the relationship in that space. I naively thought when we went into the pandemic in March that everything would be fine and I'd be back in the office come June. So that's what I was gearing myself up for. And then when that didn't happen, then I started having a lot of internal kind of conflict within my kind of expectations versus the reality. And this is where I sort of started to withdraw in a bigger kind of way, because obviously we were all not interacting, but there was the opportunity to do Skype calls and WhatsApp calls, but we tended not to actually do that. And we became more kind of Netflix binge watching films and mini series, and going and doing food shops. That was sort of our activity once a week to go out. And because of the kind of work pattern that I was actually doing, I wasn't even wanting to go out and exercise and walk. So I almost became a recluse within the flat as well, which was not a healthy position to actually be in. And at the beginning of 2020, I had tried to attempt at reducing my weight again. This time I didn't go for Weight Watchers, I opted to go for Slimming World. And by April, I had shifted to 2 stone in weight, which was making me feel a little bit more energetic despite everything that was happening in my kind of work and in the kind of home environment and everything. But it ended up then reversing, because then I ended up not just putting the 2 stone on, I ended up putting more weight on as the months of us being in lockdown progressed. And something else that had happened, I made some foolish mistakes when it came to finances. I ended up doing a family loan, which I should have never done in hindsight, but at the time it seemed the right thing to do. And as a result, there was additional pressure that even though when in 2021 work was really starting to ramp up in terms of pressure, it removed the ability from me to have choices where I could have said, no, I don't need to continue in this role. I could go and find another role. Instead, I stayed for longer than what I actually should have stayed because of that financial commitment that I had actually made. So in 2020, there was the coronavirus, there was some poor financial choices that I made. There was the kind of weight reduction and then the weight gain, the impact on that. The fact that it was a 24/7 relationship that was putting a bit more kind of strain. And to compound everything, I started experiencing some severe symptoms from the perimenopause. if there's males sort of watching this and you're not familiar with what that is, it's where there's hormonal imbalances happening to females that are probably starting maybe about 45 years old, and it can go on until they're about 55. In some cases it can be longer than that, but that's the usual kind of sort of like time frame. So for me, when Corona in 2020, I was actually 48, and even though I had been experiencing some symptoms prior to that, I hadn't made that connection until it started progressing even further. For me, what that meant was I ended up, my sleep was impacted. In addition, I had brain fog and anxiety started coming up, which is not something that I had really had much in my life, and then when I did hypnotherapy in 2023, I found the root cause of that, which was based in my childhood, but I'll go into that in another vlog. But as a result, there was some anxiety that was sort of surfacing for me. And in addition, because my kind of lack of healthy boundaries, for me it was all a black on white thinking or all or nothing thinking. There's those kind of two trains of thought, where it was like it has to either be you're eating healthy or you're eating unhealthy. There is no balance between the two. There is no, you can go and you can do a little bit of exercise. It was like if you're not committed to do 5 days worth of exercise, there's no point in even starting. So there was a lot of that kind of negativity going on in my head. So all of that sort of culminated starting in 2020, and then it sort of led probably until about midway through 2021, where I started realizing very profoundly that I was really unhappy. And it didn't matter how much love and affection and care it was being projected onto me from other people, because I wasn't feeling it internally from myself, because I didn't even realize at that point it wasn't that I didn't love myself, I just didn't feel happy and content anymore. And my future, where before it was, oh, I'll keep working until I'm 55 and then I could take early retirement, I could choose to sort of work on a reduced day basis and have more choices in life, that kind of sort of thought process was starting to be, oh my God, I don't know if I can actually cope with doing another 5 years of work with the kind of level of stress that I was starting to experience, and with all the perimenopause symptoms that I was having. Because as I mentioned, my sleep was impacted, I had poor bladder control, which meant I was waking up multiple times during the night, which then meant you were exhausted by the time you were waking up in the morning and due to log on and start doing your job. So as a result, there was just all that kind of compound effect. So as a result, that kind of sort of withdrawal that was happening, it sort of culminated to the fact that I then didn't feel supported by my husband, because I didn't have answers. I didn't know what was wrong, but neither did he, and we weren't equipped with any experience in this area. And as a result, I was wanting support from him that he was unable to provide for me. And really what I needed to do was look inwards and find the answers within myself. So what I did was I started becoming hypervigilant. I was super anxious. If he went out to sort of like meet up with friends, I was very kind of, oh, when is he coming back and why is he not back now? And then sort of like my brain would just go in hyperdrive and think of the worst possible scenario. So I was just in that very negative emotional and mental headspace. And for me, the solution at that point was that I need a clean slate. And the only way I could get the clean slate was for us to separate and for me to actually focus on me. If I didn't have a distraction, if I wasn't having to think of another person and I was just purely thinking of myself and just surviving through work, then I've got a better chance of actually surviving in the longer term. So we I wouldn't say we collectively agreed to the separation, it was my decision. And luckily for me, he complied with my request for him to move out. And then I spent the next 18 months figuring out what did I really want. And even in those 18 months, it was a lot of pain and suffering on my part to get to some answers. I knew probably clearer what I didn't want and what were my kind of absolute deal breakers, and what are the things that were back on my list of, yes, these are the things that I want, I'm curious and I want to explore and I want to have more of in my life. So I was in that kind of sort of headspace. I got medical treatment and I received some hormone replacement therapy, and I started taking that. It did start helping a little bit with my sleep. It didn't resolve the bladder control issues, but at least I wasn't sleep deprived as a result. And I guess the biggest thing was that I was starting to veer back into that suicide ideation. And that was the bit that was really scary for me. I could almost like handle every other symptom, but that was the one that I was like, I don't want to go there because I've been there before. So this is what sometimes gets referred to as dark night of the soul, where the meaning and purpose in your life is almost threatened, and you start doubting everything in your life, and you really need to go inwards to sort of figure things out. Throughout this period, I should also mention, I was receiving counselling, so I was paying a private counsellor to sort of like have WhatsApp conversations. To start with, it was before COVID, it was a face-to-face that we were meeting up every fortnight. During COVID, it reverted to WhatsApp calls and videos, and we did that every 2 to 3 weeks. And it gave me some sort of support in terms of being able to sort of articulate and vent off all the kind of stresses, so I didn't have that massive accumulation. But because there were so many layers and there was years worth of repressed emotions that I was suppressing in such a massive way, that it wasn't enough. I probably needed more. And for me, in order to really learn my lessons, it needed to get darker before the light could eventually sort of shine through. So I'm going to wrap it up here today. I know this hasn't been a fantastically uplifting video, but what I'm just wanting to sort of be honest and authentic, this is where I was through 2020 and 2021. And things did get even worse in 2022 that I'll cover off tomorrow, which then led to me finding my kind of brightness and way forward in 2023. But I just want to sort of document, and this storytelling kind of format is an easier way for me to articulate and document the events that had happened at that point. So I'm going to put some questions in the comments below. If you're going through anything at the moment or have experienced something in your past that resonates with anything that I'm saying and you want to sort of share, please feel free to do so. Or if you're currently going through something and you need some additional support, please reach out. I'm going to put some the kind of links below if people are suffering and have got suicidal ideation, that you can actually seek some support, because we don't need to go through this on our own. There are people that are really genuinely wanting to help and support us. So hopefully it's going to be a darker one again tomorrow, but the light will sort of start shining through. But from an evidence kind of documentation of my journey, I feel that it's absolutely pertinent for me to capture these, and it will give us points for us to sort of explore in future videos, and there will be more kind of hints and tips and advice that I can actually provide as a result. Okay, so thank you very much for sticking around. If you've watched to the end, I really appreciate your support, and go out and seize the day. Have an awesome day, and remember, there's always choices in life, so choose wisely. Until tomorrow, bye.